Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and you take time to listen into the podcast each week. And because you've been such faithful listeners, we've been ranked in the top 5 podcasts of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So thank you for doing that. And it would help us to keep the podcast going if you go over, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. I really appreciate that. And again, thank you for being such a faithful listener. Now, today, I'm talking with Tenia Davis. She's a human resource and recruitment expert with extensive experience in serving in executive positions at large, high caliber companies such as HBR Consulting, Raise, I Manage, Johnson Published Company, and Purple Productions. She has a deep expertise in operational excellence and so much more. We can't wait to hear more about it. But now she currently serves as the Chief People Officer at NORC. That's the way I'll say it. NORC, NORC at University of Chicago. And she works in company leadership and she affects the whole operation of excellence and invests in talent and culture of empowerment. And welcome, Tenia
Thank
Davis.
you.
So
Thank
glad you're
you.
here.
Happy to be here.
All right, so just jump right in. All right, so I just kind of read your a little bit of your official introduction bio. But why don't you tell us in your own words who you are first and then about the work you do?
Yeah, so I have been a chief HR officer for over 20 years. I've served in many industries, Johnson Publishing, cosmetics, space and defense, tech, consulting. And so I like to say I kind of had the best of all the industries pretty much, and have always been in the HR capacity. In my current role with NORC, I lead the HR function as well as employee experience and DREI. And I like to say that, I help have the empathy and the heartbeat of the organization. And I say help because it takes all of us for an organization to feel that. So that's kind of how I would describe it. But basically, help organizations drive efficiency, making sure we have the right talent in the organization, the right processes to help employees thrive and enjoy the environment they work in.
Yes, and covered so many industries, but at the heart of it, you had this passion for HR. It seems to
Mhm.
be the through line. Where did this passion begin? Because it's clear when you just talk about it, I see it and I hear it coming from you. So where did this come from, this passion, or how did this develop?
Well, no, I kind of fell into HR. I started in tech actually, in terms of working in building out different databases. And there was an opening in human resources. And at the time, the organization did not, they kind of shuffled people around, and I was kind of voluntold into the role. And that's kind of where I started. I started as a benefits administrator and then moved into recruiting and compensation. So I've worked in different arms and different functions of human resources, and I enjoy that it is very diverse, and you have the ability to touch the organization in different ways. So whether it's through analytics, whether it's through programs, whether it's through initiatives or whatever that might be, I found HR to be a great area to grow and develop just by the way it supports the organization. And I've seen it move from personnel per se to HR strategy. So HR has definitely morphed into something bigger when I originally started in my career.
Yeah, as you did. Sounds like you were evolved as it evolved.
I have, everything is a learning opportunity. And whenever, you're working in a capacity, whatever industry it might be, people, we are very complex, and you can have the same situation in a different company, a different outcome, and, the different factors will yield different responses. So it's fascinating to me to see how some organizations are able to scale faster than others based on the human capital. So, yeah, it's exciting to be part of and also to, observe, right?
Yeah, that's wonderful. And when I was reading your bio and as we were listening to the introduction there, you talked about high caliber companies. Now we can't just gloss over Harpo Productions because most people, I venture to say, most people in the United States and probably all over the world know Oprah Winfrey, and we know Harpo Productions is related to Oprah Winfrey. So I couldn't just gloss over that. What would you like to see? Any random thing, reflection, a defining moment, or something that stands out in your mind from your time at Harpo Productions?
I would say it was probably one of the greatest experience that I could have in my career. I learned a lot, and it wasn't, just because of the Oprah brand. Of course, that's a strong force in itself, but it was the people that worked there, and I learned from, you had this mixture of background skills, um, educational backgrounds, conversion to this one place with the intention to do good and put good out into the universe. And it was just a great environment to learn and grow. Um, so I always draw upon the things that I've learned there, and of course keep in touch with the folks that I like to say I kind of grew up. A lot of them were there a lot longer than me, but it was a great experience. Great leaders, the passion around the work, the commitment around the work. I always, I say to everyone, Harpo is the hardest working folks that I know, you know, and I have great respect for the work that, that was broadcast out in television land. It was a great place to work.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And so you know how we were just kind of playfully joking about how HR has its path of evolution and you've had yours. So when you
Right.
were at Harpo, where were you in your evolutionary path in HR?
So I was the head of HR for over 7 years at Harpo, and so it was basically all of the Harpo properties. And I'd like to say I was on my journey of learning, and as a professional, personally, and I think Harpo just had this magic way of touching not just the folks that watch the show, but the employees as well. So I learned from those that produced, those that swept the floor, those that were on the team. I would like to think that I've learned from everyone there. And there are just so many nuggets that I took away from that experience. And, um, the show itself, you would see the output. The work behind the scenes was just enormous. And the vigor and the commitment and the passion that just went into it. I have the utmost respect for everyone that walked through those doors. What Oprah was able to build there was just unbelievable. I don't know if we'll ever see that sort of time again. I doubt it. But what she was able to create at Harpo Studios in Chicago, Illinois, was definitely something for the books to record. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear, both from your own journey and for those of us who might be like me, fans of Oprah Winfrey. All right. So now, I didn't mention this when I introduced you, but I want to make sure I say it now that you have an MBA and a PhD. And so I want to give people that sense of your bio since neither one of us mentioned it at this point,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, because I know the work that it takes to do something like that. And so I want to
Absolutely.
acknowledge that and appreciate that. All right. Now, we talked about you've had this journey through HR, starting with tech and all these other areas. Would you say now, where you are today, that you have a sense of purpose in your work? You feel like you're in your purpose?
My sense of purpose is deeply rooted in my intentionality and dedication to making meaningful contributions wherever I can. right? In my professional life, I would say that I'm very intentional about the impact that I want to make. And I strive to identify solutions that help organizations scale and thrive while fostering healthy and productive work environments for the employees, right? Um, and it's so exciting to see, an organization start at A, move to B slowly, C, and then, to see the end results of that. And it's not just my growth, but also the growth of the people around. And when you're able to do that within the same incubator, that's something that you celebrate, but also from a business perspective, you can see how some organizations are able to scale faster when their organization is agile and has that commitment to kind of work in that pattern together. But I would say that I'm driven by the belief that my work can create positive change and improve the lives that that I'm around. And I think the workplace today has become so complex, and you have social issues, you have personal issues, you have all these issues that are just magnified today. And, it doesn't check itself at the door when it's time to go to work. It actually comes into the workplace, and it's more complex, right? Because you don't have all those different constructs around you to say this is okay, this is not okay, or go do this and go do that. You're within the frame of the business. And so it's a challenge for organizations to, how do you be supportive? How do you still establish the expectations to get the business out the door, and balance all these different temperaments in between. And I think HR professionals are, at the helm of it, helping identify what are the right initiatives to support the people, to support the business, get to the end game, have strong results so that we can all keep our jobs. But they're all commingled. So I think the role of the HR professional today is far more complex than what it used to be. However, I've seen extraordinary professionals in the HR space that are doing some extremely good work and helping organizations not only navigate the complexities of their staff, but also helping businesses understand, where is the right place for empathy, where is the right place for programming, and how do we get to, moving the business in the direction it needs to, so people don't, check out, leave, you have, turnover and all that fun stuff. So it's definitely more thoughtful and requires, different skills to some capacity.
Sounds like you're juggling in a sense. Maybe juggling is too strong, but you're holding a variety of interests. And for you, you
Mhm.
apparently figured it out and you have
Mhm.
some skills as a strategist, and you find that to be very meaningful work. That's what it sounds like. Is that correct?
It does. When you can help an organization thrive and help the body in the organization find its right footing, right? Everybody wants to fit in. People want to feel included. People want to feel they belong. People want to feel they have some sort of career trajectory. And, these are all meaningful things that the HR function drives. And having the right leadership in place, to cultivate all of that. The way we led 10 years ago is so different than the way we lead today.
Mm.
You know, what I hear around the water cooler, for leaders that are great, their teams are saying, wow, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel understood, I feel I'm getting mentoring, I feel like that I'm learning, I'm growing, I feel that I'm adding value. Those are the things that I hear about leaders that are doing things well. And those that, have not hit that mark yet or found their footing as leaders tend to see turnover or tend to have, more complexities around their ability to mobilize their teams.
I love that. And what I especially appreciate about it is that your commitment to it. You're committed to the people who happen to be in the workplace. That's what how I
Mm.
translate that. And I think about this for my own this podcast and others. I talk a lot about people at work because it's really just people. We just put
Yeah.
them in a particular place. We just can't ignore them just because they're in
Yeah.
this place and they're doing this work. And this is where
Right.
they need the support. And so you're there and supporting them because um, it's important, right? Because we spend
It
most of,
really is. It really is. And what is the intention behind, I always start with intention. What is the intention? What are we trying to achieve? Right? What is the end game? And how does that help? I mean, how does that serve the greater good? And, it's easy to say what someone should do, how they should do it, and when they should do it. But if you can't rally people around a purpose or around a mission, it's really hard for them to align to something, right? And so it should start with, what are we trying to achieve? What is our intention? I think intentionality, it's overlooked so often, and then you have to circle right back to it. But in whatever form, you want, but it's important for people to know why they are occupying a seat in the building.
yes, yes. And it seems like you have, just from me listening to you from our conversation before and now, thinking about your gifts. Um, I just had an idea. Aha. I think I'm sort of like a gift whisperer.
Yeah, so I like to say superpower. I think everybody has a superpower,
And
right?
I
And
use that word too.
I love that, right? And I think
Mhm.
as leaders, it is our job to help, cultivate that. And so if someone is a creative person and that they can come up with the most beautiful, wonderful ideas and they don't pay attention to all the detail, don't bang that over their head because they're not going to excel in what they do bring,
Right.
right? And so it's identifying where people are and how they thrive and how they grow and how they contribute to the organization. And then making sure you have a team that is well versed in different skill sets that kind of rounds out those efforts of whatever the initiatives are or
Yeah.
team or projects or whatever that might be. Um, but it takes a little thoughtfulness around doing that, right? I think historically, as employees, we were always jack of all trades, right? And so there's this expectation, well, if you do this well, you have to do that well. If you are technically brilliant, then your next step is a manager. And they might not be a manager, and that should be okay. And so we have to look at where people excel and how they contribute to the organization and how do we help them, be good in that space, right? The last thing you want to do is have force someone into a leadership role, and that's not their skill set. And, that then demotivates the group that they have to lead. That's not a good experience for the organization or for those employees. And so, it's understanding, what are those superpowers and how to support that so that everyone can thrive.
Yes, and I so resonate with that, which is why you and I are having this conversation. But I so I so resonate with that because as a part of, the podcast is leadership purpose. And my
Hmm.
definition of leadership purpose is really bringing your sense of purpose to work.
Hmm.
And one component of it is just what you just said. Your superpowers, your gifts, I call them your natural abilities, bringing those and expressing those through your work. So I'm glad to hear that you are committed to doing that work. But I was thinking about your own superpower because it seems like this is my gift whisperer or
I
superpower
love
whisperer
that.
coming through right now in real life. This is the first time this popped out of my mind or my mouth. It sounds like you have a knack for helping people with their own sense of who they are, and you're empathetic to different people and their needs and how to bring out the best of them.
Yeah, I would like to think that I am. And listen, I'm still learning in my journey as well. I don't have all the answers, but I would like to think that that's what I stand for and try to support. I think in the workplace today, it just requires so many different aspects of listening, leading, having empathy, understanding, than before. When I say before, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you go into a workplace, you do one, two, three, four, five, and then you clock out. It's just not that way today.
Yeah.
And, the generation in the workplace today, they want to be inspired, they want to be motivated, they want mentorship. They want to understand why they're doing the things they are. They want to have purpose. And these are all good things. There's not like one better than the other, or I can't believe this is what they want to do. it's really not about that. It's, how can I mobilize this group to really do the best work for the organization? And on top of that, if I can help folks also feel good about what they're doing and feel that they're adding value, that's a different level of engagement. However, those are some of the factors that keep people employed where they are. Feeling connected, feeling they have a voice, feeling they add value, feeling respected, included, things that, sometimes organizations take for granted. But organizations that pay attention to that, I'm able to see kind of the output of that as part of my research during my PhD journey, studying high performing organizations and evaluating different leadership styles. There were a lot of commonalities and how, what was deemed as a successful leader that they portrayed and what how they kind of carried themselves inside and outside the organization and where employees felt connected. And it was just really interesting to kind of, learn from that. And I captured a lot of that in my book where I talked a lot about intention and why it's important to have that. And also mentorship in the workplace, why it's so important to mentor, especially with the workforce we have today. If we want to have a workforce tomorrow, we
Yes.
have to, we have, it's so important, and things that we kind of take for granted as business leaders.
Now
Um,
you mentioned your book. Let's make sure everybody has the title and the title of your book so they know if they're thinking about, oh yeah, I might have to get this book. Tell us
oh,
again.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Amazon now. It's 80 Essential Steps to Inspire Others and Build a Thriving Workforce. It's basically this servant leadership advantage. And I talk a lot about servant leadership because, you mentioned Harpo, an organization full of servant leaders. And it was just so many things that I learned from the leaders in that organization. And the CEO at the time, Tim Bennett, who I think is just a great, phenomenal person. I have so much respect for him. And so I just talk about, how those leadership characteristics can really help employees feel they are part of something bigger than themselves. And how do you get to that sort of engagement with employees? I also have a section for reflection, as leaders, we're a lot of times immersed in the day to day and sometimes taking a step back to reflect and think about, wow, maybe I could have said this differently. Maybe I could have said that differently, or maybe approached it in a way where the outcome was different. There's kind of moments of reflection and meditation in the book as well for leaders to kind of have a full view of how they engage or at least think through and entertain alternative ways to engage all employees, especially a diverse workforce.
Sounds like a valuable resource. Tell us the title again.
Eight essential steps to inspire others and build a thriving workforce. The servant leadership advantage.
Okay, I want to make
It's
sure
on
people have
it's on
that. Well,
Amazon. It's on Amazon.
okay, great. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes. But while people are listening, I want to make sure they have that on the go, because like, wait, what did she
Thank
say?
you.
All right. So
Thank
now
you.
we're thinking about people now who are women who
Hmm.
are in the workforce. They're relatively have a level of success. This is who we're talking to. I call high achieving women, which I'll
Hmm.
say more about that in a minute. But now, in our conversation, I'm thinking about from your life and your experience how we could inspire them. So that we're
Hmm.
shifting from the work you do and now into this area of sort of hopefully inspire them just from hearing more about you and your journey.
Hmm.
All right. So now when you were little Tania, was there anything that you could see from back then that's showing up now? Were you the one that like you had a little booth up and the other little ones were coming and you were helping? Like, is there any signs or clues from little Tania to what you're doing now?
Oh, it depends on who's telling the story. If it's my sister telling the story, I think you might get something different. Here's what I would say. I would say curiosity. I've always been curious. I would definitely say tenacious. Um, and just a strong desire to learn. And I try to approach things from a very curious um, view, right? Why are we doing? Why do you think that? Well, why did you approach it and not to question per se, but just to really understand. Learning, I don't care what role you have in the organization, we're always learning something, either what to do or not to do it differently. Um, but I'm open to learning. And, I always focus on what is my intention behind what I want to do and try to articulate that to the audience. I think the world is moving so fast, and society is holding on to, all the negativity, and we're missing the opportunity to connect, and we're missing the opportunity for positivity. We're missing the opportunities to really thrive. And I love that this podcast has an audience of thriving women, because, I so enjoy watching all the wonderful things that women are doing out there in the world, and not just in the business. It's like, no, we were not going to have that today. We're going to do it this way. I'm going to stand for this. And those are all the things that are embedded in this country that it helps us move forward and propel things, out of a bad state. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Okay.
And I try to listen and slow down sometimes. I do move at a fast pace, but I do try to slow it down sometimes to, enjoy the scenery. So
Okay. So I'll take from that you were a curious child who loved to learn and so much more. All
I
right.
was that kid that would take apart the clock and then try to figure out how to put the clock back, and
Oh,
not knowing that's the only clock in the house. So it depends on where you sit. If you were waiting to look at the clock, then
you wonder
it
what time
might
it was.
it might be a while.
That's funny. All right. So the podcast Leadership Purpose, I mentioned this for high achieving women. Here's my definition of high achieving women, just so we're all on the same page and we all know what we're talking about in this moment. High achieving, the woman who is responsible, goal oriented, ambitious in a positive way. She's good
Mhm,
at a couple things. People come to, and because of that, people come to her in her professional life and ask her questions or want to pick her brain or to just come to her. In her personal life, family, friends, community, people come to her, ask her questions, could be related to anything she does or not. In both arenas, she's the go-to person, right? So
mhm,
she's often giving out the support gladly to others. And so when I started the podcast, I thought, well, who supports them while they're supporting everybody else? Because other people think, well, you don't need support because, you seem to know the answers and you're doing well, or you look it up if you can't find the answer, right? You're the one. But I'm thinking as an advocate, hey, high achieving women need support too. So
yeah,
why don't we come
sure.
together and support each other?
Hmm.
And so that was the initial intent of the podcast. And then it evolved over time. We're
I
in our
love that.
we're in our fourth season now. And so I kind of built on and built on and went through, added on also people who have written books who fit that
Hmm.
definition of high achieving. And now in this fourth season, really speaking to women who are have a level of success, but they feel like there's something missing in their work. Like they did all the things, got the promotion, did the achievements, did what was expected and thought to be this would, be meaningful. And they find I'm really yearning for more meaning, more purpose, and a sense of really doing more through my
Hmm.
work. So that's who
Hmm.
we're talking to now. We're supporting her, that high
Hmm.
achieving woman. So now, given that definition, and by the way, I saw you respond. Were you going to say something about that when I gave the definition?
No, I just nodding like that is amazing. I'm just nodding like yes,
Oh, okay. All right.
agreeing with you.
All right. With that woman in mind, because you have a vast work experience and professional experience and starting out solving the problem of the clock. So from any area of your life, what's some advice or word of wisdom you'd give to the woman I just described in regards to her wanting more meaning and purpose and expressing that through her work?
I think it's a different process for everyone, but I can tell you, that the process for me was really understanding, what fulfills me. And, um, when I went through a job shift, I was very deliberate. I wanted to do something purpose driven. And I had been in different work environments where Some were not as fulfilling as I would have liked. And it, I wanted something to really align with my values. And I wanted to leave a body of work behind that I could really be proud of. And organizations know what they want from you. We don't always have an expectation of what we want from the organization or what do we want from the experience. And so I think having an a view of what that is for you, what legacy of work do you want to leave behind? And for me, it was about legacy of work. So whether it's through education, whether it's through my writing, or whether it's through the work that I leave in an organization, I wanted to do purpose driven work and leave a legacy behind. And sometimes that just takes a moment to pause and really think that through. And I think sometimes as successful women, we're so much on the in the grind and the gerbil wheel of move, 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 do, that what you're describing, taking time to for our self-reflection for what fills our cup and what motivates us versus we're doing all the motivating. It's sometimes a quiet space that might take us to a place of somewhere different than we had expected. And my process took me to nonprofit. And so I think having the intention around what is it that you want to do and really being honest with yourself. Are you doing it for this reason? Or are you doing it for that reason? And does that fulfill you? Is that really what makes you whole? And a lot of times we compromise to have that image and vision of what we think success is, and that success might not be fulfilling to us. And that's kind of that real talk that where we have with ourselves, right? What is it that I need at this point in time? Because what might have satisfied me 10 years ago is not going to satisfy me today, right? And so that's a conversation that we have to sometimes admit. I'm in a different stage of my life now, right? You know, I'm 57. And so the way I saw life in my 40s is so different than the way that I see life in my 50s. And so my expectations are different, my motivating factors are different, and the type of work that I want to wrap myself into is different, right? My pace is the same, my rigor is the same, and all that fun stuff, but how I engage is different. And the work that I leave behind, my view of that is different now.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure that's going to inspire somebody who's listening right now as they're thinking about this. All right. Now, I know you have a full day, so I really appreciate your time. You've been generous. So let me just ask you one more
Thank you.
question. Is there
Okay.
anything, because we have so much rich conversation, but is there anything that maybe I didn't think to ask you, or there's something that popped in your mind, or something that's bubbling up that you like to say before we officially end our time in this conversation?
I think we are at a time where we have the most and best opportunity to be whoever we want to be and do whatever we want to do. And I so love forums like this because when you mobilize this sort of energy, it's just untapped. And when I think of my career as an HR practitioner and as a leader, executive, and all that, but my reflection of that is really deep seated in my belief in the importance of people centric leadership. And, I think that is so important no matter what industry, no matter what company is, leading from that lens. Our personal integrity is more important now than ever, and our zeal for lifelong learning. And so, I encourage these sort of platforms because I'm curious to see, how we're able to mobilize and the work that we can do out of this. How can we continue the reach? I'm curious to see what that could be, right? Um, and what other impressions can we leave? Positive impressions. If a moment in time can leave a bad impression, I would love to see what some thoughtfulness can leave that has a good impression.
I love that. I love that. And you and I have to keep the conversation going after this about how that
Okay.
might be a possibility. But for now, I'm guessing some people might want to be in touch with you, or they might want to hear your books, get your book. So tell us the title of the book again, and we know it's on Amazon, but tell us the title. And if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Let's see. The book is Eight Essential Steps to Inspire Others and Build a Thriving Workforce, The Servant Leadership Advantage. I'm on LinkedIn. Everyone finds me on LinkedIn. For some reason, I have a website, but everybody goes to LinkedIn. So yeah, LinkedIn is faster for me, and I do respond to folks when they reach out. So and I like to also keep the conversation going as well and connect with women that are trying to do awesome and wonderful things in the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
taking time out of your full day to share your wisdom and insights with us and your leadership. And I look forward to continued conversations.
Thank
So
you so
thank you.
much. Okay.
Okay, everyone. And let me say, Dr. Tenia Davis, like Dr. Tenia Davis, I too spend most of my time on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear your response to this episode. So head on over to LinkedIn and you can drop me a message at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD. Or if you're that person who's saying, I'm like what you two were talking about. I'm really looking for more meaning and purpose in my work. I'm at this point in my career where I feel like I should be doing more. There's more in me to do that's more meaningful. If that's you, head on over to the website for the podcast and pick up my free guide on how to find meaning in your work, meaning and purpose in your work. The podcast website is Leadership Purpose Podcast, leadershippurposepodcast.com. And you'll get the resource there, and I'll be happy to hear from you. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin.